Hi, it's Mark from Top Local Lead Generation. We're here with Mr. David Fairbairn talking about attic mold. Attic mold. Mold in your attic. I got lots of that. You can see here. We're going to get into the details about what's critical about it, why you need to know whether you got it or not, how to test for it, and how to get rid of it. How are you doing today, David?
Hey, I'm doing good, Mark. I hope you're ready to see some pictures of some moldy attics. Let me know when
Oh,
you're ready to
love
take a
it.
look at them. And
I'm
yeah, no,
hungry.
good, good. I got lots. So yeah, attic mold. This is a huge question that I get as a home inspector about. First of all, is there mold in my attic? That's probably the number one question when people go. When we go do a home inspection and we go up to the attic. The two questions I get are there mice in the attic and is there mold in the attic? Because those are the two scary sort of unknowns you have when you go up to an attic. And if you think about an attic and you look at the sort of the design of it, they're very prone to moisture and humidity problems because they're basically a sealed wood box sitting on top of your house. So if you don't have proper ventilation and a waterproof roof membrane above you that's keeping the water out, and you aren't adding unnecessary moisture into the attic, then you'll have a dry attic. If you're ventilating it properly, you're not adding moisture, and your roof doesn't leak, you will generally have a dry attic. But if you miss any of those points, generally you will get mold growth or some sort of growth up there that has to be dealt with. So what I'd like to do is show you sort of some visuals. I'm just going to do a screen share here, so let me know when that pops up for you. If you don't see it, let me know. You should see it come up pretty quick
Yeah,
here.
we got it.
All right, okay. So what I wanted to do was give you a case study of a house that we inspected at this property in Vancouver, and they had a considerable problem with moisture and condensation in the attic. Now this is a concrete tile roof, which is very popular in East Vancouver, and they generally breathe pretty well, but you have to be careful with them because in this case you'll see why. So we're looking at the soffits here. This is the underside of the eave, and it doesn't come out really that clearly in the picture here, but what we have is that there was a lot of staining around the actual soffit vents. Now these soffits are perforated, so the air will rise up and travel through the attic and carry all the moisture out. But in this case, there was a lot of staining and rust around the soffit. So that's when we're doing a home inspection and we come up to this property or a mold inspection. That's the first thing we look at is what's the condition of our soffits. And generally, you can tell if you have an issue right off the bat before you even go into the attic. If you see this, this is a big red flag. So I labeled it heavy growth. This is the inside of the attic. It was quite bad. It was a cold day and there was literally water dripping off the ceiling. And we've got what looks like some black mold growth growing in the attic here. And this is your sheathing. This is a sort of a metal sheathing paper that they use on concrete tile roofs. And what I want to, just as an aside, I just wanted to point out, you'll hear a lot of people incorrectly say that you have mildew growth in your house. I don't know if you've ever heard that, Mark. Somebody said, there's mildew in the bathroom shower. That's actually the wrong term for it, because mildew in nature will only grow on plants. It will not grow on any other surfaces. So mildew is pretty much a plant-specific mold, and it will not grow in homes unless you have plants. So it's not mildew. What we're actually looking at is mold growth. We've got some different colors here. We've got some white, we've got some black. We took a sample and sent it to the lab, and it came back as a combination of a few different types of mold, all which were needing to be remediated. So there was a lot of damage to this attic. And here's another photo of the insulation below, and we can see that the condensation in this attic was so bad that it was dripping on the insulation, and those little pock marks on the insulation are from the water dripping off the top of the attic onto the insulation. So the insulation in this case was actually damaged. So if you do see that, even if it's dry, you go up in the middle of summer and you see insulation that looks like this is another big red flag that you may have a serious moisture problem in your attic. Not necessarily a leak. It can look like a leak when you first go up, but if you've got water dripping in a uniform pattern like that, as opposed to one area, it's going to be a condensation problem. All right, so I want to go into the causes of attic mold because there's only a handful of them, and 90% of the time it'll fall into one of a few categories. So here we are. We're looking at some bathroom fans.
This is brilliant. Oh my God.
Yeah, you can see my favorite part about this is how he decided to use an exterior hood. Like, I don't know what the benefit of that is because those are generally to keep rain out, but he decided to terminate. And on the left, you've got another one coming up, and it goes right there. It stops right there, and it's got a little hood on it too. You can't see it in the picture. So we've got two bathroom fans. Now we got a family that's taking showers every morning, sometimes twice a day if they're doing sports, and you can have one 15-minute shower can generate an incredible amount of steam. I think it's somewhere around 0.83 of a kilogram of vapor for a 15-minute shower, which is actually quite a lot, right? If you think about that, that's how many pounds is that? That's just under, it's about 1 3/4 pounds, right?
Yeah.
Of vapor. And you're adding that straight into the attic, and that's a terrible, terrible design. So the big thing here is that probably the good majority of attic mold is caused by improper bathroom fan termination. So that's the first thing we got to look for is, are you adding extra unnecessary moisture into the attic? And this is a huge one. We always report this if we see it, and it's usually caused some damage by the time we find it. So our next issue is this is something we come across especially in older homes where the owner has added additional insulation into the attic. And what happens is they put insulation in, they make it thicker, and what they do is they actually block off the soffits. Okay, so the soffits, like I showed you in the first picture, you've got a vent at the bottom of that eave, and the air is going to rise up through the soffit, pass through the attic, and then out through the roof vents. And in this case, you can see that the soffits are actually blocked on the left two rafter bays, and then on the right-hand one, you can see they've added what's called a soffit baffle. So if you're adding insulation to your attic, you need to put a soffit baffle in. It's a styrofoam tray. It slides in between the rafters, and it allows air to pass above, because otherwise you're going to choke your attic, and you're going to create a huge amount of moisture in your attic. So this is probably number 2 on our list of what causes mold in attics is people getting a little bit too excited with the insulation. And the other thing you're going to want to do is if you're changing your roof out to a different type, have the guy check out how much ventilation you actually have. If you've got one roof vent and you've got a huge roof area, an attic area, you may want to add 2 or 3 more. And they have calculations for this based on the square footage of the attic. So you have to check that. So the answer to what can we do about mold? This is an example of a treated attic. So when you see white like this, you know that one of 2 things has happened. They've either had a fire and they have painted the smoke-damaged wood, and I've come across that many times where there has been a fire, but the homeowner is usually pretty upfront with it. Or you've got a mold problem in the attic that's been remediated. In this case, it's been remediated, and they've also sprayed a layer of product onto it that prevents regrowth of the mold. Okay, so
That's like a silver-based paint.
yeah, there's a couple different products out there. I'm not entirely sure which one this is, but I can get you a list of the different products they offer. It's basically it's a layer that you can spray onto the attic that prevents mold from ever happening again, taking root again. And it's particularly important in attics where you have OSB sheathing. So the OSB is you're probably familiar with the different types of sheathing you can have in the attic. That's those boards between the rafters. In this case, I believe it was actually plywood, but in a lot of attics you'll have OSB, oriented strand board, which is very, very susceptible to mold growth. And that's why I don't recommend it for roof replacements. If you're ever doing a roof replacement, don't put in OSB sheathing. Put in good quality plywood that's going to resist mold growth, and your attic will last longer. So this has been fully remediated by a mold abatement company. And per attic, I mean, if you have an attic that you have mold in, you're probably wondering about cost. It's generally, I mean, the minimum you're ever going to get this done for is probably, you know, if it's just a small area, you're looking at about $1,000. If you go into a large area, I've seen it go as high as $4,000 for a complete remediation. And there's a number of different ways they can remediate it. You can do a chemical scrub on the wood. You can do the one that I like that's sort of getting a lot of traction now is called dry ice blasting, and they're actually going to take it's almost like a sandblaster, and you blast dry ice along the material. It actually removes a layer of the wood, but it will it's very, very effective in terms of just if you want to go scorched earth on your attic and just there's no chance of anything. That's actually a really good method by which you can do it. Okay, and I think we're actually back around to the starts. I'm going to switch off the slideshow there. So just to recap, ventilation is everything when it comes to attics, especially in a wet climate like ours, as well as making sure that we're not adding any moisture to the attic. So bathroom fans, check your bathroom fans, check your dryer exhaust, and check your kitchen range hood. Because all three of those I've seen in a lot of attics where they actually dump into the attic, and you can create some really nasty problems in your attic. And if you have a healthy attic, it will make your roof last longer, be healthier for your family, and it increases your resale value because when you go to sell, there's no surprises. So if you think you have mold, you know, call somebody out and have a look at it.
So does it get worse in the winter in terms of condensation?
Absolutely, yeah, especially in buildings that don't have, you know, they have poor insulation to begin with. One of the things I don't think I touched upon was even your attic hatch, where you enter and leave the attic. A lot of the time those doors aren't sealed and with weather stripping, and they aren't insulated with some insulation on top of it, and you can get a lot of heat up there, and the heat will just settle right on the sheathing, right on the nails, and that can create huge condensation. So yeah, that's true. It is worse in the winter. You know, during hot, humid summer days as well, you can get a lot of problems there. I've seen attics that have just been completely blocked off, and they've been left that way through a couple seasons, and the roof is actually starting to collapse in some cases because the plywood is so deteriorated. If plywood sits at more than 20% moisture content, it can actually lose its, it's called delamination. And delamination is where the plies of the plywood actually separate, and you can lose the structure of that. So that's not a roof you're going to want to walk on. And that's why, you know, some cases I'll actually show up to a property and go, you know, I don't want to walk on this attic. Let's take a look in the attic, or on this roof. You know, let's take a look in the attic first. And you go in the attic, and you know, I would have probably fallen through if I'd walked on it. So, yeah, you know, definitely with the temperature swings, you can have a lot of damage up there. So again, ventilation is everything.
Awesome. So there's everything you ever want to know about attic mold and why it's very important. This stuff will make you sick or wreck your house pretty quick, so it needs to be taken care of. And if you have any doubts, if you want to know if you're going to buy or sell a home, here's the guy to call, Mr. David Fairbairn of fairbairninspections.com, 604-395-2795. Thanks, David.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Take care.
You too.